You have likely seen the bumper sticker on surfboards and rusted cars. Eddie would go. Over the decades, it has become a popular shorthand for ultimate courage, the kind that acts when everyone else is paralyzed by fear. We usually assume that a crisis acts as a catalyst. We believe that when our own life-altering storm arrives, we will suddenly discover a hidden strength that wasn't there before. That belief is a fantasy. Extreme pressure rarely generates new traits. It simply strains the ones we already possess. The true story of Eddie Aikau proves the opposite of our cultural assumptions about bravery. His life demonstrates that waiting for the moment of crisis to become brave is a strategy for failure. To understand how courage actually functions under pressure, we have to look past the legend and analyze the mechanics of a specific high-stakes sacrifice. In 1968, Eddie Aikau was hired as the first official lifeguard at Waimea Bay. He spent the next decade performing over 500 rescues in wadis that reached 30 feet in height. Under his watch, not a single swimmer lost their life. The phrase, "Eddie would go," originated as a grievance from his captain. His commanding officer grew frustrated watching Eddie ignore safety warnings to paddle out into surf that was objectively too dangerous for any guard to enter. His captain observed that Eddie's relentless training had eventually overwritten his basic human biological urge to stay safe. The slogan describes a man governed by rigid, professional routine. Eddie was a quiet lifeguard who had replaced his survival instinct with a decade of specific, repetitive action. On March 16, 1978, Eddie joined the crew of the Hokulea, a traditional canoe. Hours into the journey, a storm capsized the vessel, leaving the crew clinging to the hulls in gale-force winds, miles from the nearest shipping lane. Eddie tied a life jacket around his waist, grabbed a surfboard, and paddled away into the open ocean to find help. He was never seen again. 12 hours later, a commercial pilot spotted a random flare fired from the wreck. The Coast Guard rescued all 15 survivors shortly after. By the cold math of outcomes, Eddie's death changed nothing. The crew survived because of a flare and a lucky glance, not because of his swim. This creates a paradox. If his action was statistically a failure, we have to explain why we still view this moment as the definitive act of courage. The arrival of a storm acts as a reveal, exposing the specific character traits you have already cultivated. When Eddie Aikau paddled into that gale, he was executing the programming he had written into his brain. During 10 years of quiet, unobserved rescues. He didn't decide to be brave on the hull of that canoe. He had made that decision a decade earlier. Understand a difference between a choice and a decision. A choice is a panicked action under extreme duress, the frantic, last-second calculation when the wave crashes down. A decision is a quiet command code, written in a calm environment, years before the crisis. You become brave during the quiet intervals of your life. Preparation makes the eventual action an unavoidable guarantee rather than a desperate gamble. Do not expect a crisis to fix your character. If you wait for the storm to arrive before finding your strength, you have already lost. Identify one specific boundary or shortcut you currently compromise when you feel tired or stressed. Tonight, while you are calm, write down a single, non-negotiable rule for how you will handle that exact situation from now on. This absolute decision is the only mechanism that ensures you won't have to make a panic choice later.